Finally had a chance to use one of these. Well, I finally have a chance to use this.
Ooh. Wah!
There's a pretty good chance that you'll get a TV series in the States called The Warriors, in which you use what? The martial arts in a Western setting?
That was the original idea.
So guys, I've been wanting to make this episode for a long time. I've had the outline written, but let's get to it. This is based off the writings of Bruce Lee. This guy right here. I don't know if you see the shirt. Bruce Lee. So he wrote this back in the day when he was alive. Rest in peace, Bruce Lee. Warner Brothers took it away from him. They tried making a show out of it, and they didn't use Bruce Lee for it because as they quoted, American audiences aren't ready to see a Chinaman grace the screens of American audiences, which maybe at the time they were right, but now in the changing world, anything goes. But I'm not gonna waste any time. Let's get to it. This is mainly a crime drama centered around the Asian experience. It is produced by Shannon Lee. The daughter of Bruce Lee himself. She teams up with producer Justin Lin, and if that name doesn't ring any bells, that is the director from the really good Fast and the Furious movies. Tokyo Drift all the way to Fast 6, and I think the new one, but I haven't seen that one. This was all filmed before the 2020 pandemic. So, and oddly enough, a lot of things haven't changed, sadly enough, but this is based in the 1950s with the Yellow Scare. This is based in the 1850s in San Francisco, right before the fire of 1906. And is based on the Yellow Fever and the Tong Wars. And the reason why this show ended up becoming a little socially relevant when I was watching it, because I watched it like right in the beginning of the pandemic, like a little close to the early pandemic when I got recommended this in a podcast. This show became very socially relevant at the time because it was fresh off the heels of the pandemic. So Trump was using all those repulsive comments towards the Asian community that, for me, they're not tolerated. It seems like that stigma still hasn't gone away in all these years, because if Bruce Lee is writing about his experiences, I'm pretty sure he experienced a lot of this and a lot of the name calling that they use in this. And here's another note: they deal with racism in a different way from in the Asian experience. They deal with it, and they deal with this in this show in their own way that I've never experienced in a show before, let alone a movie. Well, maybe I haven't seen enough movies to actually have a point of view like I did in this show. Other than that, and being socially relevant, this show totally kicks ass. Oh my god, man, this is, yeah, you're about to hear me gush on this show. On this one. On Warrior. Best way to describe it is like, Peaky Blinders meets martial arts meets spaghetti westerns. It's the best way I could describe it. This show is just something special, man. It was on Cinemax, but Cinemax came down. It's on HBO Max now. And the creators really did their homework when they did this, because apparently I saw this on the Sway in the Morning. They were interviewing them, and they were saying how they had to go to physical libraries to actually look up on what was all happening back then, because during the fire, everything got burnt down, so there wasn't a lot of love for this community, so a lot of it got burnt and dismayed. So they had to do an extra part of researching for this to make it as authentic as possible and to feed into the historical facts that came in to this show. But this was a pleasant surprise. They play against the tropes. The main guy, he's not the strong silent type like Jet Li was, or any Asian character that's always playing the silent trope. And only a handful know how to fight, and fewer know how to fight as well as our main guy. But the fight choreographer is Brett Chan. He does a lot of Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do, which a lot of it Bruce Lee. I think Bruce Lee helped make Wing Chun, or he helped develop one of these. Not too sure, but I know he helped develop this and also brought it to the States. They casted real fighters first before they even casted actors because they needed to sell these fights. And man, these fights are pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie. This is totally kick-ass show. The cast is great. I mean, they play a lot of morally complex characters all throughout. Even the women characters, they don't even use the usual trope with them with using their sexiness to attract. No, they're cunning. They are strong. They'll cut you down. I mean, quite literally. And nobody really has clean hands in this show. Not even the main protagonist. Not everybody makes the best decisions, and you could tell that these are real people. Like, they really sell this as the characters being real people. The women, they can be really cold, cunning. The cops are just as great as the rest of the cast. My favorite one is Richard Lee. He is a Southerner who is, oddly enough, the least racist of the cops, which is pretty funny saying for the time that it is. I think this is right after the Civil War, so makes sense why everybody's still divided, mainly in the duck pond. Well, there's another thing. They have like a unique dialogue for this show, which like they have slang words. The showrunners were saying that some of these were actually said during those times, and some of them they just made it for the show to make it feel like a real lived-in world. Getting back to it, the cops, they are the only one. Richard Lee is probably the only straight shooter, and he's one of my favorites, my personal favorites. Bill, he's a little more complex. He sees himself a lot in Richard, but he's become complacent and he lets things slide. He's very morally ambiguous, but you can tell Bill has a good heart at the end of the day. Dennis Leary, he is as well a good villain, or I mean, I wouldn't say he's a villain. Everybody has their own perspective, their own wants and needs, and you don't really see his side of the story till season 2, where they actually go into depth and what motivates him and why he is a certain way. But for the most part, he's still just a bully and a thug nonetheless. But you see his motivations and where he's coming from and why he's a little scared and acting the way he is. And to Andrew Coyge, he is the man. Okay, so here's a little backstory on him. He was actually about to give up acting before he landed this role. And I'm a big fan of him. I'm glad that he's actually become more of a star since he got on this show. I know he was in Snake Eyes. I made a review for it. I'll put it up here. But he has a lot more movie roles coming at him now because of this show, and I absolutely love. I mean, he's such a great actor. I mean, he plays the warrior. I mean, the main character, the main lead, our hero in this story, Assam, and everything's mainly based off of. The story begins and he is mainly the powder keg to this community and how it's going to change and grow along with him. And what I love about him is that it's not your typical trope hero where he knows everything to do. No, he does some stuff that you don't agree with. He doesn't make the wisest decisions. He's very brash. He can be very arrogant, but his heart is in the right place for the most part. And he's got a lot of secrets that come to reveal, especially in the first episode. You can see that he's not just a straight shooter. He makes mistakes, but he learns from them. He gets back. He doesn't always win the fights. He loses. He gets back up, but it's not just a sudden shift. It takes him a while to dig out of his own hole, out of his own self, to become the hero that is propelling him to be. And this dude is one badass mofo, man. This dude, oh man, he kicks ass, dude. I want to see him, Eco Oasis. I want to see these guys in a movie together. This would be totally badass. Oh, Joe Taslim. I would like to see Joe Taslim. All three of these guys are in. I would like to see them all together in a fight scene or in a movie together. That would be totally badass. I want to see that. But Joe Taslim's in here too. He's on the opposite side, but this is also based on the Tong Wars. He's on one side and his sister is on the other side. But this guy, he has so much heart, and you could tell that he's just trying to survive and trying to do the best out of his situation. And which leads me to the next point. This show is mainly about the struggle for power, and some characters like Assam is just trying to survive, and the best way is by cleaning the people of power, and he just wants his sister. But as the show progresses, it's not that simple. But the main villain is the guy who lands in the shadows. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You're going to have to watch it to find out who it really is, because you think it's Dennis Leary, but it's somebody else until you start figuring it out through about season 2. But that dude, I gotta say, he is a psychopath, because psychopaths, from what I remember reading about them, is that they plan everything. They're very meticulous, but they're not scared to get their hands dirty either. I know this guy, he has a lot of those traits. He's not a sociopath, to tell you that. Man, the first season is great. The first episode grabs your attention right away. You don't need 3 episodes just to get into it. No, the first episode comes and gets you right away. This boy, Andrew Koij, who plays Assam, he has like those Bruce Lee attitudes about him, and every episode, I can't tell you there's a dull episode. There's not a filler episode. Every episode feels like a movie of its own, and the action is always well paced, well choreographed, and man, I can't stop gushing about this. But yes, it's such a kick-ass show. This show really has some real discussions and some ugly conversations that are usually uncomfortable, especially in this climate right now that we're in politically. And they ask the ugly questions, and they're not afraid to do it. They have balls. This reason why I love this show so much. They have the balls to ask these questions and actually have answers for them that are sad but true. And at one point, there is something that happens to a certain character. I'm not going to give any spoilers away. I'd rather y'all appreciate and love this show the way I did. Finding it the way I did. Surprise after surprise. But anyways, there's something that happens to a certain character, and you're expecting someone to come and stop it and save it. But this is the way life was back then for them. And it was tragic. And no one's going to look out for you if you're a minority. And man, this show really went for it. And in your head, you're expecting that, oh, it's gonna get stopped, but in reality, it doesn't. And this show really did pull that card. I really have to take my hat off for it. Back to the fighting. Even the fighting, like Assam, he's very flashy and flamboyant when he does his fights. The fighters, they have so many nuances, especially with the way they fight. They match their personality. Assam, he's very flashy and flamboyant, and has a lot of mannerisms like Bruce Lee. And even Joe Taslim's character, Lee Yong, he's very quiet. He's very precise. He picks his shots. And every fighter the way they fight matches the character's personality. Like Leary, he's very big and he's very menacing, so when he fights the same way. Big ego, he carries this presence about him. And also, there's this one cool aspect of this show that I really, really did enjoy. Sometimes they do these 180 shots when they're speaking either Cantonese or Mandarin. They do this 180 flip for the camera, and they go from speaking that to speaking English, or whatever region you're watching this in. They go to that and they speak perfectly fine. They speak like you and me. But I noticed watching it like halfway through that they put on an accent for the white folks. And whenever they're outside of Chinatown, or whenever they speak to someone outside of Chinatown, they'll speak with an accent. And I didn't recognize that till like halfway through, because I was like, it kind of threw me off that they were speaking so well. And then they throw on the accent halfway, like when they're speaking to anybody else, which I thought was very smart and very it's the small subtleties that make this show so great. Even the women are in the same status as the minorities at this time. They're basically second-rate citizens. This is way before they had their own rights, and you can really see how they get treated. It's the reason why Assam and I forget her name. I'll put her name right here. There's the reason why these two end up bonding, because they both are suffering under the same circumstances that they're set upon. So in the middle of season 1, there's one of my favorite episodes is in the middle of season 1 with a Western, a little homage to the Western, since this does have a bit of a Western take on it. And all I'm going to say is gangsters versus cowboys. Just down and dirty. And just think for a minute, a man so fast, he snatches a guy's throat out. That's all I'm going to say. All right, overall thoughts. It's a well-crafted show, compelling writing, great character development, complex characters, great villains, great motivations for all characters. Not a single one gets left behind. Even when you think it does, it gets worked out towards the end of season 2. All plot threads are done well. Fight scene wise, probably the best I've seen in a long time. I know it's a martial arts show, but hats off. This show has me rewatching some fights sometimes. It's refreshing seeing this, especially in a setting like this with crime drama and a bit of Western thrown in there, sprinkled in there. Assam is a great and compelling protagonist. I am 100% behind him. I hope he does get more work, the actor. Would I recommend this? Absolutely. This is one of the great shows that hasn't been talked about enough. And luckily we're getting season 3, so I have to give this a rating of gold. Yes, sir. I'm gonna give it a gold. Giving it a gold. I don't have too many problems with this. I mean, the first season was really solid, but this one just elevated from where, like, the first season had its footing, got its footing. This one, we're going full speed ahead. Hopefully with the whole acquisition to HBO and all the stuff that's happening with Warner, I hope we don't lose the quality of how good the show is. That is it for today, guys. You'll see my socials right here. My TikTok is blowing up for some weird reason. Yeah, guys, y'all have a good one. And as always, take it easy.